Personal Story segment tonight. Does the government have a right to stop you from taking drugs? Celebrities like Sting and Montel Williams recently made a commercial funded by a George Soros organization telling Americans they should be allowed to do pretty much what they want in the consumption of narcotics.
I support the Drug Policy Alliance because I believe in the right to sovereignty over one's own mind and body.
Because I believe in personal freedom and personal choice.
Because the war on drugs represents an extraordinary violation of human rights.
Because whether you use drugs or not, you deserve to be treated with respect, kindness, and dignity.
Now, we oppose that message, citing child neglect and abuse statistics. With us now, Ethan Nadelmann, founder and executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance, who put forth that spot. So, you know, the organization that researches the Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, they say 70% of abused and neglected children in the USA have alcohol or drug-involved parents. Mm-hmm. And alcohol and drug-abusing parents are 3 times likelier, 3 times, to abuse their children and neglect their children 4 times as much as regular parents or parents who abstain. Mm-hmm. So that's why I oppose. Am I irrational in your...
I think so, Bill. I think you are. I mean, here's why. A lot of that stuff is alcohol. It's not the other drugs. You have very few cases of parents smoking too much pot and being called in by child services. That's the first thing. Second thing is we have laws to deal with child abuse and issues to deal with that. You're not going to argue that we should make alcohol illegal because the majority of child abuse cases involve alcohol abuse.
Well,
right?
Let me stop you there. I mean, we have laws that are reactive. They come in after the kid is abused and neglected, not before. And I can't believe that you and your organization, if you really care about kids, want to widen the intoxication net. You know, we already have 10% of Americans alcoholic, 10%. Yeah. All right, marijuana, you say, oh, parents who are stoned perpetually, all the time, you think they're good parents? Can they be good parents?
Think about it. Millions of people are already using these drugs despite the fact that they're illegal. There are 3 surveys with young people where young people now say it's easier to buy marijuana than it is to buy alcohol. If ever there was an indictment of the failure of marijuana prohibition, that's it.
It's not a matter of failure of anything.
It's not as if we have hordes of Americans waiting to go out and destroy themselves with drugs.
It makes it easier to do so if you can buy it at 7-Eleven. It makes it a lot easier to do so. If you want me to acknowledge,
are there some risks associated with reducing the penalties? Yes.
Tremendous.
When we're arresting almost 2 million Americans a year, locking up 500,000 people tonight, spending $50 to $100 billion
most of those are sellers. Most of those are people who engage in sales.
Out of the 1.8 million people being arrested for drugs, almost 2/3 of those are for simple possession.
And they don't go to jail. They get fined.
No, that's not true.
Most of them don't go to jail. Overwhelmingly, they don't go to jail.
They're not going to state prison for long periods of time. If they're one of the 5 million people under the supervision of parole and probation, they are going to jail or prison.
Look, it costs society a tremendous amount to wage the war on drugs, okay? I'll cede you that. But when you have these overwhelming statistics of child abuse and neglect, and you say, oh, it's not drugs, it's alcohol, that's bull. Cocaine, heroin, meth, all of those things incapacitate parents. They incapacitate them.
I can't help wondering where you would have been. Where would Bill O'Reilly of 1931 or 32 been on the debate about repealing alcohol prohibition?
You know, I wouldn't care because I don't engage.
People would have said the crime, the violence, the corruption, Al Capone, millions of Americans violating the laws, and they would have talked about the horrors also of alcohol abuse. But ultimately, what's the balanced, sensible, pragmatic policy? You sometimes attack, you say this is a liberal elite issue. But you know as well as I do. You got John Stossel, you got your colleague
the libertarians want
you got William Buckley and Milton Friedman bringing it back from the grave.
Nobody can answer the question about the 70% that are substance involved and abuse and neglect. And society should condemn that and not make it easier for more people to be added.
You want to condemn child abuse and child abuse? Yeah. I agree with you. Let's focus on that issue directly. Why we need to arrest 2 million Americans a year, spend $100 billion a year, put 500,000 people behind bars, be leading the world in incarceration rates in order to deal with that issue? I say deal with that issue directly.
The libertine societies that have tried this, they tried it in England, they tried it in Switzerland, and a lot of other places, it's never worked.
But that's actually false. But that's false. Portugal, right? Succeed.
It's not false.
Switzerland
they
succeed.
Rescinded
I got to
the
tell you, though, the average age of the heroin acts in the Netherlands is 40-something, right? Portugal has reduced the crime. So, in fact, the evidence in Europe shows that reducing the reliance on incarceration works.
Okay, so you're not going to reduce child abuse and neglect by legalization.
No, I got to tell you this.
You are not going to reduce it.
Take the money you're spending on prisons.
You're going to expand it. You're going to expand it,
take the money you're spending on prohibition.
I got to go, Mr.
And focus on that. That's the way to deal with that problem.
All right. When we come right back.